For 10 years, I lived believing my dad had abandoned me and my mom, until the day he returned with a truth that shattered everything I knew. For as long as I could remember, my father was a ghost, someone who existed only in blurry memories and faded photographs. My mother never spoke much about him, and when she did, it was brief, like she wanted to push the conversation away before it could take root. He left, she would say whenever I asked. And he's not coming back. That was it. No details, no explanations, just a firm, final statement that slammed the door shut on the subject. As a kid, I tried to press her for more, but eventually I learned it was pointless. By the time I was 16, I had given up wondering. I built my life without him in it. I didn't need him, I told myself that so many times it became my truth. My mother worked long shifts, barely sleeping, barely stopping, always doing everything she could to keep us afloat. I respected her more than anyone in the world. And in my eyes, my father was nothing more than a coward who had walked away, leaving her to struggle alone. But sometimes, on nights when I couldn't sleep, I would find myself staring at the one picture I had of him. It sat buried at the bottom of my nightstand drawer, hidden under school notebooks and old birthday cards. In the photo, he looked young, mid-30s, maybe, with dark eyes that seemed kind, almost warm. He held me in his arms, smiling at the camera while I, no older than 4, reached up toward his face, my tiny fingers curled around his chin. I used to love that photo. I used to imagine that man was still out there somewhere, thinking about me, missing me. But as I got older, I realized the truth. If he had missed me, he would have come back. It was the night of my 16th birthday when everything changed. I never made a big deal about my birthdays. My mom and I had a tradition, homemade cake, a small gift, and a movie night, just the two of us. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and that was enough for me. That evening, as I blew out the candles, my mother smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. She had been distant all day, more tired than usual. I tried not to let it bother me. We were in the middle of watching an old movie when a knock echoed through the apartment. I frowned. We weren't expecting anyone. My mother went still. It was only for a second, but I saw it, that flicker of something in her expression. Fear? No, something deeper. She hesitated before standing up. "Stay here," she said quickly, walking toward the door. I ignored her and followed. By the time I reached the hallway, she was already gripping the doorknob, her breath coming in shallow, uneven gasps. Then, slowly, she pulled it open. And there he was. A man stood in the doorway, tall and unfamiliar, his face hidden in the dim light of the hallway. His clothes were worn, his posture tense, as if he was bracing himself for something. And then he spoke. "Hey, kid," he said, his voice rough, almost hesitant. I stared at him, my stomach twisting into knots. There was something eerily familiar about him, his dark eyes, the shape of his jaw, the way he looked at me like he was seeing a ghost. And that's when it hit me. I knew this man. I had spent my entire life hating him. My father had come back. For a long moment, no one spoke. The world outside seemed to fade, the distant hum of traffic, the muffled voices of our neighbors, even the soft crackling of the movie playing in the background. Everything felt frozen. My mother was the first to move. She sucked in a sharp breath and gripped the doorframe so tightly her knuckles turned white. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. The man, my father, flinched slightly, like he'd expected those words, but hoped they wouldn't come. His gaze shifted to me, searching my face for something I wasn't willing to give. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. Anger? Shock? Some long-buried longing for a father I had convinced myself I didn't need? I felt nothing. He took a step forward, but my mother's voice cut through the silence, firm and unyielding. "No." He stopped. "I just want to talk," he said, his voice quieter now. "Please." I had imagined this moment 100 times in my head. Every time, I saw myself lashing out, demanding answers, making him regret ever leaving. But now that he was here, standing right in front of me, I couldn't seem to say anything at all. I studied his face, looking for something, an explanation, a sign of guilt, anything, but all I saw was exhaustion. He looked older than I remembered, though, to be fair, my only memory of him came from a 10-year-old photograph. His dark eyes held something heavy, something almost painful. But I didn't care. "You have some nerve," I finally said, my voice like ice. "After 10 years? 10 years? And you just show up like this?" My mother's shoulders tensed, but she didn't stop me. He exhaled slowly. "I know. And I don't expect you to understand. But I had no choice." I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Right. No choice." I turned to my mom. "Do we even have to listen to this?" She was still gripping the doorframe, her whole body rigid. But she didn't tell me to stop. She didn't even look at me. Instead, her gaze was locked onto him, her expression unreadable. Something about that made me uneasy. If my father was really just some deadbeat who abandoned us, then why wasn't she slamming the door in his face? "I just need a few minutes," he said again, his eyes flickering between the two of us. "And then, if you never want to see me again, I'll go." I wanted to tell him to leave, to disappear just like he had 10 years ago. But my mother hesitated. And that hesitation cracked something inside me. Something wasn't right. She wasn't angry. She wasn't throwing him out or demanding that he stay away. Instead, she looked afraid. And for the first time since he showed up, doubt crept in. What if everything I thought I knew about him was wrong? What if there was more to the story than I had ever been told? The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. My mother still hadn't said a word. She just stood there, gripping the doorframe as if it was the only thing keeping her upright. And I noticed something I had never seen before. She wasn't angry. She wasn't yelling at him to leave. She was afraid. I turned to her, my heart pounding. "Mom?" My voice was quieter now, uncertain. "What's going on?" She blinked as if waking up from a daze, then quickly shook her head. "It's nothing. He's nothing." But even as she said it, her voice cracked, and she still hadn't looked me in the eye. I wasn't sure what scared me more, the fact that my father was standing in front of me after 10 years, or the fact that my mother, the strongest person I knew, was shaken by his presence. "Just listen," my father said, his voice calm but urgent. "Please." I wanted to tell him to get lost. I wanted to slam the door in his face and pretend this never happened. But something held me back. The doubt, the unease, something in my mother's reaction told me that I didn't have the full story. So, instead of walking away, I crossed my arms and stared him down. "Fine. Talk." My mother inhaled sharply, her fingers tightening against the wood. "No," she said quickly. "You don't have to." "I want to," I interrupted. If he was lying, I wanted to hear it from him directly. If he was telling the truth, I needed to know. She hesitated, looking between me and my father. Then, finally, with what looked like great effort, she stepped aside. My father took a deep breath, as if preparing himself for something painful, and then walked inside. I sat on the couch, my arms still crossed tightly over my chest. My mother stood a few feet away, arms wrapped around herself, her whole body tense. My father, on the other hand, seemed tired. Not just physically, but in a way that made it look like he had been carrying something heavy for a long, long time. "I never wanted to leave you," he started. I scoffed. "Oh, really?" Could have fooled me. He didn't get angry. He just nodded, like he expected that reaction. "I know. And I don't blame you for hating me." "I don't hate you," I said, my voice cold. "You're just a stranger." Something flickered in his eyes, but he didn't argue. Then, finally, he spoke the words that changed everything. "I was taken." I frowned. "Taken?" He swallowed hard. "I was arrested, accused of something I didn't do. And before I could prove my innocence, I was locked away." I stared at him, waiting for him to drop the act. But he didn't. He wasn't just saying it, he believed it. "That's insane," I said. "Mom would have told me if that was true." My father looked at her. "Would you?" I turned to her, expecting her to deny it immediately. But she didn't. She didn't say a word. And suddenly, my whole world tilted. "Mom?" My voice was barely above a whisper. Her hands trembled at her sides. I did what I thought was best, she said, her voice hoarse. I couldn't breathe. You knew. I was trying to protect you, she burst out. You were 6, and she stopped, pressing a hand to her forehead. I didn't know if he was ever coming back. I didn't know if, she swallowed hard. I didn't want you waiting for something that might never happen. I shook my head, trying to process what I had just heard. My father wasn't a deadbeat. He hadn't abandoned us. He had been taken away. And my mother, my strong, honest mother, had lied to me for 10 years. And the worst part? I didn't know which betrayal hurt more. The room felt smaller, like the walls were closing in around me. My mother stood rigid, her eyes pleading, but I couldn't meet her gaze. My father sat across from me, still as stone, waiting, maybe for me to yell, maybe for me to walk away. I did neither. I forced myself to take a breath. Start from the beginning, I said, my voice tight. No more half-truths. No more secrets. Just tell me everything. My mother closed her eyes, exhaling shakily. My father hesitated, like he wasn't sure if I was ready. I wasn't. But I needed to hear it anyway. He ran a hand down his face, then finally spoke. 10 years ago, I was arrested for a crime I didn't commit. It happened fast. One moment I was at work, the next I was in handcuffs, being dragged away like some criminal. I thought it was a mistake, that it would be cleared up in a few hours. But it wasn't. I swallowed, my throat dry. What were you accused of? He hesitated, then sighed. Fraud. Embezzlement. A federal case. I blinked, stunned. That doesn't make sense. We were broke. He let out a bitter chuckle. Exactly. But someone needed a scapegoat, and I was the easiest target. I was just an accountant, a nobody in the company. But they pinned it all on me. He shook his head. I spent years fighting to clear my name, but they buried me under paperwork and technicalities. Every time I thought I had a way out, they shut the door. A lump formed in my throat. I didn't know what was worse, imagining him sitting in a cell, innocent, or realizing that I had spent a decade hating a man who never truly left me. I turned to my mother. Why didn't you tell me? Tears glistened in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Because I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know if he'd ever get out. I didn't want you growing up waiting for something that might never happen. Her voice broke. I thought it was kinder to let you believe he was gone. My hands curled into fists. Kinder? You let me hate him. She flinched. I know. And I will regret it for the rest of my life. I looked away, my chest tightening. This was too much. Too much pain. Too much regret. Too much wasted time. I turned back to my father. Why now? Why did you come back today? He swallowed hard. Because I finally won. I proved my innocence. And the first thing I did when I got out was find you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. For 10 years, I thought my father had walked away from me. But the truth was, he had been fighting his way back to me all along. And now, I had to decide if I was ready to let him in.